My friends, we are living in times that shake the foundations of this world. The headlines scream of retaliation, unrest, and a fear that seems to grip the hearts of leaders and nations alike. When Iran's answer to conflict came swifter and louder than expected, the world watched with bated breath. Leaders gathered in urgent silence, the powerful suddenly humbled by forces beyond their control. But while the world may tremble, the soul of the faithful must stand firm. These moments remind us that power in this world is fleeting, that strength built on fear will always be shaken. Yet there is a strength not born of might or missiles, but of truth, peace, and a hope that doesn't burn in the fire of revenge. In the panic of world leaders, we see the limits of human wisdom, but in the quiet heart that trusts beyond headlines, beyond breaking news, we discover the peace that no retaliation can destroy. You are not called to cower in chaos. You are called to rise. You are called to live with purpose even when the earth groans beneath the weight of war. In the midst of this storm, let us draw closer to what is eternal, to the calm that is not of this world. Because when the world is in panic, it is not a time to fear. It is a time to believe. There comes a time in every generation when the world seems to groan beneath the weight of its own fear. Nations tremble. Empires waver. The ground beneath our feet, once firm, now feels like shifting sand. You look to leaders for answers, but find uncertainty. You seek security in institutions, but discover instability. You search for peace in politics, and yet all you find is panic. But my friend, in moments like these, when the voices of the powerful tremble and the lights of the world dim, the faithful are called not to crumble, but to stand. To stand strong when the world shakes is not a matter of willpower alone. It is not the posture of pride or human strength. It is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are anchored to something deeper than governments, more unshakable than armies, and more enduring than the fear that runs through the veins of nations. It is to be rooted in the one who does not change, the one who knew this day would come before time began, the one who still holds tomorrow in his hands. There are those who ask, where is hope when missiles fly and cities burn? But I ask, where has it ever been? Has hope ever rested in the hands of kings or the promises of peace treaties? No, hope is born where surrender meets grace, where fear bows to faith. The world may not understand it, and that's why it panics. But the faithful understand. The faithful know that the darker the night, the more clearly the light is seen. You don't need the world to be steady for your heart to be strong. You need to know what your heart is standing on. The man who builds his life on what is eternal can walk through the shaking without falling apart. When the storm comes, and it will come, it doesn't matter how tall your building is. It matters how deep your foundation goes. And friend, if your life is anchored to truth, to righteousness, to the eternal, then you will not be moved. Let the news report fear. Let the nations gather in confusion. You, my friend, stand. Stand for peace. Stand for grace. Stand for truth when the world tries to spin lies into power. Do not be afraid when the world seems to fall apart, because these moments are not the end. They are the beginning of something deeper. They are the moments when faith is proven, when the soul that trusts is revealed for what it truly is, unshakable. You may feel small. You may feel powerless in the face of global events. But let me tell you something that the world has forgotten. It is not always the kings who carry the strength of a generation. It is the quiet, unseen, faithful ones who stand when others run. You don't need a microphone to make a difference. You need conviction, you need courage, you need faith that walks forward even when the ground shakes. Faith does not ask for guarantees. It does not require safety. It simply believes that no matter what happens around you, something greater lives within you, and that something is not fear, it is not hate, it is not revenge, it is love, it is hope, it is the fire that endures when the world grows cold. That kind of faith can't be shaken by the news or rattled by conflict. That kind of faith is forged in silence, in surrender, in daily trust. Yes, the nations may tremble. Yes, the headlines may be loud. But the faithful are quiet not because they are weak, but because they know who holds the storm. They do not panic because they have already laid their fears at the feet of the one who commands the wind and the waves. Their strength is not in being untouched by trouble, it is in being unbroken through it. So when you see the world grow darker, do not despair. Let it be a reminder that light is needed. Let it be a call to stand. Let it drive you deeper into truth, into prayer, into purpose. You were not made to blend in with the panic. You were made to rise in the midst of it. You were made to be the stillness in the storm, the peace in the chaos, the voice that reminds others that there is a hope greater than war, a strength stronger than fear. And maybe, just maybe, the trembling of nations is not the end, but the beginning of a great awakening. Maybe the shaking is what finally brings us to our knees, not in defeat, but in surrender. And in that surrender, we find strength. Not the kind the world understands, not the kind that comes from power or weapons or wealth, but the kind that endures all things, the kind that lives when everything else fades. So, my friend, in this shaken world, I ask you to do one thing: stand. Stand not in fear, but in faith. Stand not in anger, but in love. Stand not on sand, but on the rock that will not move. Because when you stand firm, you become a light for others. And when one heart stands firm, the darkness begins to lose its power. This world may tremble, but you do not have to. You can stand strong, not because you are mighty, but because you are held, and in that strength you will not just survive the storm, you will shine in it. There is a sound rising in the earth today, a sound of chaos, a sound of confusion, a sound of hearts breaking under the weight of war. The world trembles as nations rise against nations, as leaders scramble for answers they do not possess. And in the middle of it all, people like you and me are left asking, where do we go from here? We see the panic on every screen, we hear the fear in every voice, and sometimes we feel it creep into our own hearts. But even now, in the smoke and noise of a world at war with itself, there is a path, not to more chaos, but to clarity, not to despair, but to purpose. You see, chaos is not always the end. Sometimes it is the very beginning of awakening. When everything falls apart, when the structures we trusted crumble, we are forced to ask deeper questions, and those questions can become the doorway to clarity, the kind of clarity that is not found in human wisdom or global policies. The kind of clarity that comes from looking beyond what we see to what we believe, beyond the visible to the eternal. You were not made to live in confusion. You were not created to wander through life reacting to every crisis. You were formed with purpose, and that purpose does not change when the world changes. In fact, it becomes even more important. The flame inside you was not lit to flicker in peace and go dark in trouble. It was made to shine brightest when the darkness grows deeper. This world wants to drown you in distraction, to blind you with fear, but your life is not defined by headlines or breaking news. It is defined by a call far greater than the noise of this age. And that call remains even in war, even in panic, even when nations burn and kings fall. That call says, you are here for more than survival. You are here for purpose. Clarity does not come when the world is calm. It comes when your heart chooses to trust even when your eyes see trouble. It comes when your soul decides to be still, not because the storm has passed, but because you know who is greater than the storm. Clarity is not found in answers, it's found in alignment. When your heart aligns with eternal truth, everything else begins to make sense. The confusion of the world becomes a backdrop to the focus of your mission. This global panic, this war, this unrest, it is not your enemy. It is the moment in which your purpose can be revealed. The world does not need more people reacting. It needs people who are rooted in hope. Rooted in love, rooted in a peace that cannot be taken away, no matter how loud the sirens or how bright the fire. Your calling is not on hold because the world is in crisis. Your calling was made for crisis. You were born for such a time as this, not to be swept away, but to be a light, not to join the noise, but to bring a voice of calm and reason and truth. The world may be burning, but your heart can be a place where heaven still speaks. Purpose is not found in ease. It is revealed through trial. It is clarified in chaos. When the world shouts fear, you whisper hope. When others run in confusion, you walk with clarity, and not because you have all the answers, but because you know the one who does. There is something powerful that happens when a person stops waiting for the world to get better and starts living as if they were sent to make it better. That's where purpose lies. Not in reacting to the darkness, but in shining through it. Not in waiting for peace, but in becoming a vessel of it. You have a role in this world that no one else can fill, and the chaos that surrounds us right now is not a reason to shrink back. It is the moment to rise. To speak when others are silent, to love when others hate, to serve when others hoard, to live with integrity when lies are louder. In doing so, you will discover something that no war can destroy: clarity. The kind of clarity that gives you strength to keep walking when others fall. The kind of clarity that lets you sleep in peace while the nations rage. The kind of clarity that sees beyond the pain of the moment to the purpose of eternity. Friend, there will always be wars, there will always be uncertainty, but you do not have to live as a victim of it. You can live as a light in the middle of it. You can live with vision, with boldness, with calm conviction that this moment in history was not meant to crush you, but to call you into deeper truth, call you into higher purpose, call you into action. So don't let the chaos define your identity. Let it refine your clarity. Let it awaken what has been sleeping in you. Let it shake loose the fears that have held you back, and let it remind you, you were born to live with purpose, even when the world forgets its own. From chaos to clarity, this is not just a journey for nations, it is a journey for your soul, and today that journey can begin, not with a change in the world, but with a decision in your heart. A decision to no longer let fear lead, a decision to rise, a decision to believe that even now, in the middle of uncertainty, your life still matters and your purpose still stands. There are times when the ground beneath our feet begins to tremble, not just in the physical sense, but in the deeper places of the soul. We watch as nations clash, as retaliation and fear sweep across borders, and we feel the weight of it pressing down on our own hearts. The world becomes unrecognizable. The voices we once trusted begin to waver. The strength of governments, the certainty of peace, all seem to vanish like mist, and yet in the middle of it all there is a call, not to fear, not to retreat, but to rise. When the earth shakes, something within us is tested. It is in the shaking that we find out what we've truly built our lives on. If your hope is anchored to the temporary, then you will tremble with it. But if your soul is anchored to something greater, something eternal, then even when everything around you falls, you will stand. Retaliation may shake the headlines, fear may grip the powerful, but there is a strength not born of power or position, but born of peace. The kind of peace that does not come from the absence of conflict, but from the presence of truth. That kind of peace anchors the soul when the storm rages. That kind of peace steadies the heart when the nations roar. You were not made to be tossed by every wind of panic. You were not created to live your life reacting to every tremor of war and revenge. You were created to live with purpose, and purpose does not run from the storm, it rises above it. But how can we rise when the world is shaking? How can we find stillness when retaliation echoes through the earth? We begin by anchoring our soul not to politics, not to opinions, not to the strength of this world, but to the one who is unshakable, the one who does not change with the seasons, the one who remains steady while empires rise and fall. Anchor your soul and then lift your head. For though the storm may shake the surface, it cannot reach the depths where truth resides, and it is in those depths that courage lives, not the loud courage of pride or aggression, but the quiet, enduring courage of peace. The kind of courage that says, I will not be moved by fear, I will not be defined by the chaos around me. When you live anchored, retaliation no longer rules your decisions. Fear no longer guides your words. You become a person of peace in a world that desperately needs one. You become a steady hand in the chaos, a light in the dark, a voice that calms instead of provokes. The world says strike back. The world says panic. The world says run, but faith says stand. Faith says love. Faith says rise, not above people, but above the fear that drives them. You can rise above retaliation. You can rise above revenge, because you were created not for the storm, but for the stillness beyond it. And don't think for a moment that your part is small. A soul anchored in truth can influence generations. A life that chooses faith over fear, peace over retaliation, can shift the atmosphere around it. You don't need to be in a position of worldly power to carry eternal purpose. You need only be willing to be the calm in the chaos, willing to forgive where the world demands vengeance, willing to hope where the world has given up. The earth may shake, but your soul doesn't have to. You can rise because your identity is not tied to the condition of the world, but to the calling placed upon you from the beginning. You were not called to be overwhelmed. You were not called to be consumed by fear. You were called to rise, to reflect grace in a graceless world, to walk in peace when others march in panic, to be the evidence that even now there is a hope that holds. And friend, when you choose to live like this, you become a refuge for others. In a time when so many are looking for something to hold on to, your life can point them to what is unshakable, not just by what you say, but by how you live. By your calm presence, by your unwavering purpose, by your quiet strength when others break. So when the earth shakes, don't look around in fear. Look within. Ask yourself what your soul is anchored to. And if the anchor is deep, then let the storm come, because it will not move you. It will only prove the power of what holds you. You may not be able to stop the shaking, but you can choose your response. You can be the one who rises not in defiance but in faith, not in fear but in love. You can be the one who walks through the storm and still has peace in your steps. There will be many more storms. The world has never been free of them, but you were never meant to live at the mercy of them. You were meant to live above them, anchored deep, rising high, steady in the storm. This is the calling on your life, to rise when others fall, to shine when others fade, to believe when others doubt. Not because of your own strength, but because your soul is held by something greater. So rise, even when the earth shakes. Anchor your soul, and become the kind of person this world desperately needs. Steady, faithful, and unshaken. There are moments in history when the world is caught in the crossfire, nations pitted against nations, hearts hardened by hatred, and the loudest voices calling for vengeance instead of peace. We see warplanes in the sky and fear in the eyes of our children. We hear the language of retaliation in every corner of media, and the hope of resolution seems like a whisper lost in the roar of conflict. In such a time, it may seem strange to speak of peace, but that is exactly when peace must be spoken. And not only spoken, but led. You may feel small in a world of giants. You may feel voiceless in the thunder of war. But let me tell you, the heart of a peace-minded soul carries more weight than the sword of the strongest army. Because when chaos breaks loose, it is not more destruction that we need. It is leadership rooted in hope. It is the voice of reason, of grace, of vision. That kind of leadership does not rise through power, it rises through conviction. When the world is on fire, the leader who brings water instead of fuel stands apart. The one who speaks calm into the storm, who listens before shouting, who chooses wisdom over impulse. This is the leader who changes the world, even if only one heart at a time. And you, friend, are called to be that kind of leader. Peace-minded leadership is not weak. It is not passive. It is not blind to the danger. It sees clearly the cost of war and still dares to choose a better path. It knows the noise of the world, but chooses the stillness that brings true clarity. It knows that unity is harder than division, but also more powerful. The peace-minded leader stands not to avoid the conflict, but to redeem it, to draw purpose out of pain and light out of the smoke. And where does this kind of leadership begin? Not in government halls or military commands, but in the heart of an individual who decides that love is stronger than hate. It begins in the home, in the community, in every small place where a choice is made to be a peacemaker. You do not need a title to lead. You need a truth that guides you, and when truth lives in your heart, peace can flow from your life. You might be watching the world unravel and thinking, "What can I possibly do?" But never underestimate the power of a single life surrendered to peace. One person who refuses to speak hate. One person who chooses kindness when the world is cruel. One person who walks in humility instead of pride. That person can influence more than you'll ever know. Because peace spreads, it multiplies, it inspires others to believe that another way is possible. When the crossfire rages, hope looks like someone standing still while others run. It looks like someone forgiving when they have every right to fight. It looks like leadership that holds to principle, not just popularity. It looks like a quiet strength that does not break when the pressure builds. That kind of hope is rare, but it is exactly what this world needs. And let me remind you, peace-minded leadership is not absent from reality. It is anchored in it. It does not ignore evil, it overcomes it with good. It does not deny the wounds of war, it works to heal them. It does not pretend there is no pain, it simply refuses to let pain have the final word. That's the power of hope in the crossfire. It stands firm when everything else crumbles. It believes in restoration even as the walls fall. The world has seen many kinds of leaders, those who lead by fear, by force, by dominance. But history remembers best those who led with peace, the ones who extended a hand when others raised a fist, the ones who chose forgiveness over revenge, the ones who were mocked for their mercy but remembered for their courage, and you, friend, can be counted among them. You may not stand before nations, but you stand before people every day. Your children watch you. Your neighbors hear you. Your community feels your presence. What if you chose peace? What if your words healed instead of hurt? What if your leadership, in whatever circle you've been given, became a light in this dark world? You do not need a perfect world to lead with peace. You need only a heart that refuses to mirror the madness. A heart that says, even in this conflict, I will lead with love. I will lead with grace. I will lead with hope. Because in the end, it is not the loudest voice that wins the war. It is the one that brings people home, the one that sees the humanity on both sides, the one that believes no battle is worth the loss of the soul. And when that kind of leadership rises, even in the smallest places, it begins to change the atmosphere around it. Hope in the crossfire is not a fantasy, it is a calling. It is the courage to be different, the strength to stand alone, the vision to believe that peace is not weakness, it is power. And when you lead with that kind of peace, you not only bring hope to others, you become a reflection of something far greater than yourself. You become the very evidence that light still lives, even in the fire. So rise up, not in fear, not in hate, but in hope. The crossfire may rage around you, but your soul can stay steady. Your leadership can shine. And your life, anchored in peace, can lead others to believe again, in purpose, in unity, and in a world made better by those who choose peace even when the war is loud. There are moments in life, moments like the ones we see unfolding around us, when crisis knocks on every door. Global tensions rise like a tide that refuses to recede. We see the fear in the eyes of our leaders, the anxiety in our neighbors, and the heaviness in our own hearts. Nations argue, powers posture. The world stage becomes a battleground of uncertainty. And it's in these very moments that something powerful begins to emerge, not from the palaces of politicians or the chambers of generals, but from within the human soul, something called courage. Crisis reveals. It strips away comfort. It shakes loose everything that isn't rooted deep. And in that shaking, you learn who you really are. You see, it's easy to talk about strength when the road is smooth, but true strength, inner strength, is born when the path crumbles beneath your feet and you keep walking anyway. We often look to the world for answers. We watch the experts, the analysts, the talking heads. But friend, the deepest lessons in life aren't taught through broadcasts or boardrooms. They are taught in the quiet corners of the soul. When everything around you feels uncertain, the question is not, will the world survive? The question is, will your soul stand? Because courage isn't the absence of fear. It's standing firm in the face of it. It's feeling the tremble of uncertainty and deciding that your faith, your integrity, your purpose will not be moved. The world is watching war unfold, but beneath that conflict is a call for each of us to discover what we truly believe and what we're really made of. Global tension becomes personal tension when it touches your home, your heart, your peace. And it's in those moments that your response becomes your legacy. Will you be driven by fear? Will you collapse under the weight of what you cannot control? Or will you rise, not with clenched fists, but with a steady heart? Inner strength does not come from arrogance or noise. It comes from a quiet conviction that says, though the world shakes, I will not be shaken. That kind of strength is not born overnight. It is cultivated in the stillness, in the prayers you pray when no one is watching, in the truth you hold to when every other truth is questioned. Crisis is a mirror. It reflects what lives inside us. And what we learn in crisis can change not only our perspective but our purpose. You learn how little control you really have over the world, and how much influence you have over your own spirit. You may not be able to stop the war, but you can choose to be a peacemaker. You may not end the fear around you, but you can carry calm within you. The world doesn't need more panic. It needs people who are unmovable, people who still believe in what is good, people who still lead with compassion, people who can stare into the chaos and speak life, speak light, speak peace. That kind of courage, friend, will never come from your surroundings. It will always come from the center of your being. And let me tell you, there is a strength inside you that has not yet been tapped. a courage that has been waiting for the moment to rise. Crisis doesn't weaken you. It gives you the chance to find out just how strong you truly are, but you must choose. You must choose to believe that your life is not random, that you were placed in this moment for a reason. Not just to survive, but to shine. Courage in the crisis looks like integrity in the fire. It looks like compassion when hatred is easier. It looks like praying for your enemies when the world tells you to curse them. It looks like standing when everyone else runs, and every time you choose that path, your inner strength grows. We live in a time where fear is loud, where headlines shout despair, but louder still is the voice within you, the voice that reminds you that you were created for more than fear. You were created to carry hope into the darkest valleys, to bring comfort in the middle of the storm, to live a life that points others not to your strength, but to the source of it. Crisis may come from without, but courage must come from within. And the beauty of it is this: your strength can become someone else's shelter. Your courage can become their confidence. Your peace can become their possibility. This is how we build a better world, not by reacting to panic, but by responding with purpose. Do not underestimate the impact of a steady life in an unsteady world. One soul anchored in truth can influence a city. One heart filled with love can change a family. One voice that refuses to break can calm the storms around them. That kind of influence is not given. It's earned through quiet obedience, unwavering conviction, and daily faithfulness. So what do global tensions teach us? They teach us that the things we chase for security, money, politics, power, can vanish in a moment. But the character you build, the truth you believe, the courage you live out, these remain, these endure, these matter. You have what it takes to rise. You have what it takes to walk through this fire and come out stronger. Not because of who you are in the world's eyes, but because of who you are in your soul. You were not created to crumble. You were not designed to drown in fear. You were meant to walk with strength through fire, to carry light through darkness, and to lead others not with force, but with faith. And so I say to you today, stand tall. The crisis may not end tomorrow. The tensions may not vanish. But your strength is not dependent on their resolution. Your strength was given to you for such a time as this. Let the fire come. It will only reveal what is unbreakable in you. This is your moment, not to wait, but to rise, not to hide, but to shine, not to be afraid, but to be brave. Courage is not beyond you. It is within you, and now is the time to let it lead. So as the world trembles and uncertainty surrounds us, let your heart remain anchored. Let your soul be the steady force in a storm. Past age, you were not made to be swallowed by fear, but to rise with courage, to lead with peace, and to live with unwavering purpose. This crisis may shake the nations, but it cannot shake what's eternal in you. Stand firm, walk boldly, and let your life shine as a light in dark places. Because when others look for strength, let them find it in you, not for your glory, but for the good you were born to bring.